so this is a GPS coordinated watch, right? That is the right time. Look where the second hand is. Now look up there.
Pretty close.
How about that? Pretty impressive. That's a fancy town you work for here.
You making me a scarf for this winter?
In spite of your level of funding.
Because I'm worried about it all the time.
I put some block on it.
You better.
I do.
You got a nice hand going there.
I give him a hard time.
Yeah.
I was driving.
I had that really,
Corvette
I
convertible.
can't remember the name of it, but in Mexico, it went on like chapstick. Turned my entire head dark white, but I didn't get sunburned.
Okay,
At least
that's
6
it.
weeks it's been
We
good.
call this August 20th meeting of the Plan Commission of Order together. Please stand and face the flag and say with me the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge
pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
you all. Tammy, roll call, please.
You can't come in here, lady.
You already left.
Miss Duffy? Here. Miss Burke?
Here.
Mr. Mallinger?
Here.
Mr. Erickson?
Here.
Mr. Burge?
Here.
Mr. Rogowski?
Present.
Mr. Craig?
Here.
Thank you. We have a full quorum. I would like to have consideration of the minutes from July,
No.
March?
Yes.
Really, March?
Yes, because we didn't have a quorum in
Oh,
July.
that's right, we didn't. And I was gone in June. Okay,
So moved.
I'll second.
all those in favor of approving the minutes from March 19th, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We have a lot on the agenda tonight, but I'll ask first, other than the things on the agenda, is there anything that someone in the audience would like to address the Plan Commission about? If so, come forward now. And if not, we'll go forward. We have no final approvals to do. We have no site plans, but we're going to go to the preliminary hearing for Mr. Patel. Mr. Patel, would you like to step up, state your name and address, and explain what it is that you're proposing?
Hello everyone, my name is Vishal Patel. I'm stepping on behalf of my cousin Vyomesh Patel. He's out of town, and we are joining owning the Spring House Inn. And we have the vacant lot in front of the next, like by the visiting center. And we buy the lot to build the hotel there around the COVID time. But that after that one, the cost will go high for the construction. So we postponed the plan and the lot sitting over there. And after they close the bridge by the Spring House Inn, and it's gonna hurt to us like lot for restaurant and hotel. So we was using like, hey, why we cannot put the sign over there? So at least we can, visiting people come over there, they can see sign and we get some business. So we need to get some sign over there. That's why we need to do some rezoning.
Okay, thank you. So if I can feed back to what I think I heard, you're asking that property to be rezoned.
Right.
So that you can put a sign up.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Good. Can I have a comment on rezoning to put a sign up?
Well, so the reason for the rezone is it's a billboard sign, it's advertising something not on the property, and our code specifically states you must be rezoned to B3 and get a use variance. So that's what our code states. And they put the sign up without a permit, and I asked them to cover it up and apply for this. The property was purchased for a future hotel, which again is 3.2 acres, it's across from the visitor center. So that's why they purchased property in the first place. They put the sign up to try to do some advertising. Sign was put up in August. I gotta think when it was put up. So was that 2023? 2024, yeah, okay. So the sign was put up about a year ago. But since there's no permit, no approval for it, I had to cover the sign up. So I do know that.
What did the sign actually say?
It's an advertisement for Springhouse and Pizzeria Uno,
Okay.
basically. I have photos of it somewhere, I forgot to bring that, but, so that's the purpose of it, is the code requires the rezoning and the use variance to put that up. And it's also along Highway 49, and it does require an NDOT permit also. So there's 3 different requirements to put a billboard sign up there.
Okay, thank you. The decision we have to make tonight is not whether to rezone or not. The decision we have to make tonight is whether to have a preliminary hearing on it, or whether to have a public hearing on it, following which a decision would occur. So, we have a sort of minimal set of criteria to determine if this should go to a preliminary hearing. Have we met those?
Public hearing.
Public hearing.
A public hearing, thank you. They're both P words. The paperwork has been filed.
Mhm.
You guys, you have the materials in front of you that accompany the application.
Does our next meeting give us the time allotted for him to have all of his stuff done? So I move that we set it to public hearing at the next meeting.
I'll
And
second.
allow him to work with Mike to make sure all of the proper advertisements are put out.
Moved and seconded. Are there questions, clarifications on the motion on the table, which is to set it to public hearing? If not, I'll call for a roll call vote.
Mr. Gregg?
Yes.
Mr. Erickson?
Yes.
Ms. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Burge?
Yes.
Mr. Bogowski?
Yes.
Ms. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Ballinger?
Yes. So the motion carries. It'll be set for public hearing at our September meeting. Please work with Tammy and Mike to make sure that all the next steps are taken care of and that your case is put together with a strong case. Thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it. We have no public hearings or findings of fact. Tonight is an unusual night for the Plan Commission and for us. We have 2 unusual things in front of us, which I'll explain. Both of them are charges that we've been given by the president of the town council. They've asked the Plan Commission to first make a recommendation on a presentation made by Ball State students earlier this summer and pass that recommendation along to the town council. We'll do that first. Second, the council has asked us to put together recommendations for updates to the town ordinances regarding, and we'll go into this in more detail later, general rental guidance, short-term rental guidance, and accessory dwelling units, all of which are related, which we'll explain later. So tonight, we are not making changes to the town. We are discussing recommendations to the council. So that's the big meta picture that I want to explain what's going on here. We'll be talking to one another about it. This is not a public hearing. We're kind of informal. If somebody's got something to say, we'll do it. But before any town code changes would occur, a subsequent meeting would have a public hearing and code changes and stuff like that. So this will go on for a while. This will go on for some time. But tonight, what you get to hear and watch us do is talk about recommendations to the council about 2 things. And that's what that's my informal description of what's gonna happen right now. So we're gonna launch into that. So the first thing is, y'all, my fellow commission members, should have something called Plan Commission Assessment of Ball State Project. And, so recall that back in the springtime, Ball State students came here and made a presentation up there and in front of everyone. Subsequent to a challenge that they got, and the challenge which was initiated by our council member Jim Burge was, please help us plan improvements to the intersection of State Road 49 and US 20, which they did, and then they sort of hit it out of the ballpark and did a 3-point and some other hoops and things. They over-delivered on it, and they made a presentation followed by a document that has recommendations not only for what we could do with that interchange, but other recommendations all throughout town, including parks that our colleague, Mr. Bogaski, will take a look at. So the council has asked us to take a look at that document, which y'all have had a chance to do, and respond. In order to facilitate the discussion, what we've done is we've put together this document which you have in front of you, which sort of summarizes what we heard and what we saw, and then a proposed set of recommendations on the second page. The idea being that the most expeditious way to get this done would be to give everyone a chance to look at that, consider it, and then we can use this as a starting point tonight. So I propose that we use this as a starting point. I'd like to hear from you suggestions to accept and/or change this, and of course, you can also say, throw it out and start all over again, but just to expedite things, what I want to suggest is, I invite comment on this document, Plan Condition Assessment of Ball State Project. So, I invite my fellow commission members, what do you think?
I think you hit the nail right on the head. Looks really good. I fully support all three recommendations. And, and there's some interesting park things in there that I think would be good at Hawthorne, so. I like it. I have no changes.
I'll get you, okay?
Well, there's the park department speaking.
I'll bet there's something on your mind.
Well, I would just like to thank Jim Burge for his work. I know this didn't cost the town anything, but the vision that it gave us is invaluable. It's always the vision that I had in my head, but to have, I guess, an AI rendering or kind of manipulation of what that, and to get on the same page, I thought was very valuable to understand, to get on the same page with the vision, but also to understand the perspective that other people have when they come to our town, which is very valuable, and what the town could be. And I think that's very valuable, and I thank you for your work.
Thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, I was pleased. I mean, again, it didn't cost us anything, and ideas are what change the world, right? And if different people have different perspectives, like you said, if you have something on paper, it makes it a whole lot easier than to be staring at a blank page and trying to come up with independent ideas. So it gives us a starting point. And like Brian said, there's several things in there that even though they may not, in dots, that you can't, necessarily put all those things in that space, but other areas around town, we may be able to take those concepts and still have, something similar, long-term vision to help improve life around town. That's all good stuff.
I think that overall, it fits in with our comprehensive plan. This is exactly what we want, and so it's nice to see something in a small piece like this, and that we can actually digest and take some action on. So again, appreciate it too. And appreciate Mr. Bogaiski's, rock solid agreement with it.
We're family here, so besides the commission members, Jennifer, what, you had something to say?
After the presentation, I believe there was something in the newspaper about, NDOT said no to certain things. Does this take into account what NDOT said no to?
Yeah, in fact, without reading the whole document and taking up the night, in summary, what we're saying is, although the state said you cannot change within the clover leaf, the document says there's a lot of ideas all throughout town.
Okay.
And what we're saying is, take those ideas and pass it along to the appropriate body. The stuff for the park district to the park district, the stuff that they talked about on Lincoln, the next time we do the downtown master plan, et cetera. So it's taking those ideas and saying where they should go.
Is there a way of getting a copy of this?
I think it's on
It's on the website.
it's on the town website. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah,
So that's all taken into account? NDOT said no, okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no more comments, then I would entertain a motion that recommends we pass along our recommendation of Plan Commission Assessment of Ball State project to the town council.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Tammy, would you please pass this along to the town council? All right, we're on to the next thing. This is gonna take longer, so I don't know how long you thought you were gonna be here tonight, but let's find out. I'm gonna introduce this by mentioning to people that you have heard for the last couple of years, for the last year, for the past couple of months, and even within the last weeks, municipalities and towns and counties all throughout Greater Chicago and Northwest Indiana talking about things like short-term rental management, accessory dwelling units, housing crisis, et cetera. This is the same thing. The town of Porter has actually been thinking about those same issues that all the communities along the lake shore here, the three-county area, have been doing for some time. This actually started with some residents approaching the council 4 or 5 years ago saying, hey, you gotta do something about rentals, you gotta do something about safety. This thing started a few years ago when the Plan Commission was talking to our building inspector saying, our zoning code doesn't seem to be enforceable. How can you do better with rentals and safety? This thing came up because
I don't think it belongs in the zoning ordinance. I think it should be a separate ordinance that has to do with more with building than zoning. In terms of having additional requirements on rental units versus owner-occupied units, my question would be, why wouldn't you not want to have the same guarantees on a a owner-occupied structure? I mean, there are certain codes that are already in existence that require, certain levels of habitation in terms of terms of like heat and air conditioning and types of ways in which electricity is sent to the structure and how it's distributed within. I mean, these things are already in building codes. I don't know if you need something added additionally, but in terms of the rental inspections, that's going to be a tremendous additional burden on the building department to go around and inspect all these units. So you might have to add manpower, to the staff in order to do this efficiently. But I really, what you're doing is you're not really creating a new code. You're enforcing the existing health and safety codes that already exist.
Thanks, Jim. I'm gonna expand on what you said. First, by just recognizing that I think you've made two really salient points, well, several, but I wanna call out two of them right away. One is, this talks about rentals, but some of the benefits of good planning and good management would apply to non-rental. I agree, and that's an important point that maybe I want to do. Secondly, you have pointed out let's make it very obvious. Plan Commission's charge is generally around zoning. Discussions in this document go beyond zoning and go in building.
Right.
And that is unusual. This is not a procedure on which we decide anything. But it's a charge that we've been given by the council to say, you guys think about this and come up with some things, and we're gonna do that. Recognizing that should we think these ideas are good and ask that code come out of it, that code will likely affect zoning, which is the Plans Commission mandate, and other things, which is not the Plan Commission's mandate. So obviously, we're not the final decider of any of that, the council is, but I'm recognizing that you're right there. You also made another point, which is that if all this is good, then it has to be enforced, and that's gonna become here. Some of that is discussed in here, but the details are to be worked out. So I don't talk all night, we can get on this. I just wanna make one other process discussion, which is, all we're gonna do tonight is walk through, thank you for coming, let's walk through a document, share our thoughts about these ideas, and see if we can conclude these ideas. Even if we got through all this tonight, that would not be the end of the process. The process would then be, all right, if the commission thinks these are good ideas, we would then ask that our council and our building development will collaborate on creating a draft code, which would then come back. And that's really the deciding point. That can't be until a month or 2 or 3 from now. And even at that second step, which would then comprise a public hearing, debate within it, and a vote within us, all we're doing at that point is we're producing something that we would send to the council for the council to decide. So there's, in the largest sense, there's 3 big steps here. We walk through this, talk about what we want to think about, do to it, make changes to. Number 2, get code that is built off of this by our council and our development director, which we would vote on another time. And then 3, it's up to the council to do anything about it. And we have on our commission Jim Burge, which is sort of the heart, the council gets to keep his heartbeat on this all along the way. But in order to get things done, this seems to be a good way for a small town to proceed. Okay? Yes?
Are you at accessory dwelling units yet? You want to talk about those?
Well, I thought we'd go through this in order,
Okay, okay,
if that makes sense, so.
yes.
All right. Okay, questions about what we're doing? In other words, we're walking through this document tonight, see how far we get. I mean, I could tell you where the document came from. It came from a lot of people. Stuff's taken from the American Planning Association, stuff, there's a lot of iterations. That doesn't mean you don't get to criticize it. I'm just saying a lot of people worked on it to get it here. All right? Okay, so let's start on page 1. There's an overview of why we are going to look at ADUs and rental units and the purpose of the document. Let me just ask you, does anybody have any questions or comments about what is on the first page?
No, other than establishing those guidelines throughout this document, I think is good, and the safety aspects that are incorporated into it, I think are needed and appropriate.
Okay, I'm gonna go to page 2. The only thing I'm gonna call up before where it says general residential guidelines, I do wanna call attention to the fact that we recognize that there was a House bill in 2018 which kind of circumscribes what towns can do about rentals, and that's in 1035. And we're counting on Chris Willoughby to be a participant in these discussions when we find ourselves coming up with ideas that go beyond our power to do. And we recognize the fact that we don't get to do whatever we want to do. We've got to follow the law.
Can we talk a little bit about that House bill, since this is all based off of that? I just had the question. The House bill essentially says you cannot ban owner-occupied rentals, but you can put restrictions on all of them or just the non-owner occupied rentals? I wasn't quite clear on that. I think what we're trying to do is non-owner occupied rentals, and these permits are for non-owner occupied.
Well, let me say one thing first, and then I'm gonna turn it over to both Mike and Chris. First of all, there's recommendations in here that are rentals, period, owner occupied or not, that have to do with safety and that sort of stuff. So you have to kind of parse this out. And so parts of this are absolutely for any rental, period. That's the recommendations. Mike, Chris, you want to comment anything else on Tara's questions about the state constraints in general, or about parsing this between owner occupied and non-owner occupied?
Well, we have no rental code, period. So there's no safety net for a renter to know that they're renting a unit that meets any code requirements for a habitable structure. I can't just walk into someone's house unless the owner or the renter asks me to come look at it. So my complaints typically fall under, usually I get a complaint when there's a disagreement between the tenant and the owner of the property. I've had several that I've looked at which nobody should be living in, and that's one of the issues we have. There's no way to keep any control over what people are renting out unless we can have standards for that and then, you know, inspect them and make sure they're following them. Right now, we just have smoke alarm, smoke detector. That's the only thing we have, is they have to have, you know, proof they have smoke detectors in the house. I've seen some horrible rental properties in this town, and it's after somebody leaves, and they should never have lived in it. So we don't have any standards at all for that. There's separately is the short-term rental. There's a very specific set of rules for that, which we essentially copy the state law on that. You now can't charge a fee for registration, although we can have them register them. Most of the registration stuff is so we know who owns the building if there's something happens to it. You know, if there's an emergency or something like that. But the main thing, just when this started several years ago, started looking at rentals. We don't have a rental code. So we have apartments down the street. We have, you know, one big set of apartments here. We have some fourplexes on Lake Charles, and then random houses all over town are rented out. And again, I usually get the complaint when somebody's at the end of their rental term and it's never been inspected, and then I go look at this place and nobody should have lived in it in the first place. So part of this is to make sure that people meet the standards for a property. And in Jim's point, a single-family home, there's a horrible house down at the end of the street that you wouldn't want to go in, that the guy was living in himself. But he wasn't renting it, he chose to live that way. So there's a difference between choosing to live that way in your own house and renting out a property that is dangerous or substandard to somebody and making money off of it. So that's what we're trying to distinguish. The short-term rentals, now what's going on is a lot of companies and people are buying up properties all over the place near the beach and doing short-term rentals.
Yeah.
That is a very narrow window that we can manage. It's really just to register and keep track of things and inspect them. That's really it. The state code, you know, is very specific on that. So Rob put a boatload of time into this thing. And I call it an idea list. I think Rob's word's framework. It's an idea list. So it's, you know, let's discuss some ideas. And then we'll put them into an ordinance document. And it's not, like Jim said, it's not necessarily Plan Commission's zoning thing, but we don't have a rental code. So it's dangerous to not have a rental code. We should have had one years ago. There isn't one. The short-term section of it is another small part, and then we're wanting to roll ADUs into it, which is a whole other discussion. So there's a lot of stuff in this that we're trying to do at one time and have one document. So I do have a roughed out, I call it bones because Rob stole framework, but I have a roughed out ordinance. It's, you know, right now it's about 25 pages long. Most of that is the nuts and bolts of what's a habitable structure. So it talks about room sizes and HVAC and electricity, which is what you talked about.
Right.
So that's mostly the bones part. So if you're gonna rent a property out, you know, it needs to meet certain requirements, and, you know, Jay's part of it would be life safety issues, so they, you know, have to have the proper exiting and fire protection code, or you have your smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms and stuff like that. So all that needs to be in there so that if you're renting and making money off of something, somebody knows they have the right requirements met. The ADU thing's a whole different piece, but we're trying to put it all in one wad, so.
Can I go back to the state requirements?
Yeah.
Can we or can we not ban,
No,
I know we can't ban all Airbnb rentals,
no,
but can we ban the ones that are not owner occupied?
No.
Nothing, okay.
no, you can't ban them. You could, there's just, if it meets, there's a very narrow window of things you can legislate, for lack of a better way to put it. Most of it's just, that, you know, you're keeping track of stuff. One of the aspects of that also is if you go through Airbnb or Vrbo or one of those companies, you're paying the innkeeper's tax directly when somebody applies for that. We don't get that. I don't know if anybody knows that, but it goes to the county, it doesn't come to the town. So that innkeeper's tax is automatically taken out if you go on Airbnb website and you rent something out. That's done automatically through their website. When people are doing those things, they should be paying that innkeeper's tax. That's state law. That's part of that short-term rental law, that they're doing that. So it's to make sure everybody's compliant with state law and local laws and just basic have a habitable structure. I don't know why I can't say that tonight, but anyway. That's really the main thing that we wanted to look at. And then I like saying the slippery slope of ADUs that Jim and I want to talk about later, but it's a different thing. But I have the state laws, I can send those to you. It's real easy read, they're short, they're not very long. But they tell you specifically what you can't outlaw. So I know New Buffalo puts some stuff up, but they're in Michigan. They don't have that state law that we have in Indiana. So Indiana has a law that protects people that do short-term rentals, but we want to make sure that we're keeping track of them. Because there's a lot of rentals. I don't think you realize how many rental properties there are. There's a lot of rental properties in this town. Some of them are single-family homes, and they're not very nice houses. Some of them are wonderful houses. Then there's the whole thing of just renting a room. That's never been an issue. You can do that anywhere. You rent a room out of your house, doesn't matter. But some communities made a distinction between owner-occupied and non-owner occupied. I don't know if we're gonna do that or not, but we could. That could be a choice. We could do that. My long-winded answer, sorry.
Jim?
I'm just not convinced that there's enough of a differential between owner-occupied and non-owner-occupied or rental units
I don't either.
to treat them differently. Regardless of whether people are living there, they own it, or whether they're renters, they should still have the same protection level in terms of inspections and whether or not the facility is safe, and it should be occupied or it should be condemned. The other issue I have is how do you know when, if you're gonna segregate and just deal with rental units, how do you know that a unit is being rented?
County.
It's not obvious.
No, you can go around the county and look up who owns it. It tells you right there. If they don't live in the house, it says right on the county map. So Tammy and I go through that often and list them. So we actually have a list right now of all properties.
But that's only if the information is voluntarily given.
And it's if the owners make the tenants pay their bills.
Yeah.
If the bill is still in the owner's name, we won't know if it's a rental or not.
Exactly. So you're not gonna catch them all. Because they're smart enough, if you're gonna impose additional restrictions on rental units, they'll find a way to avoid it being identified as a rental unit, if it's possible.
Certainly a truism that anything that can be regulated will hatch a plan around it. But that's not a reason not to regulate. But I acknowledge and agree with certainly the point that owner or non-owner occupied should be subject to the same thing, absolutely. And I think that goes to Mike's point about, we just had nothing on the books at all. I'll make one other comment about how this originated, starting back a few years ago. There was a conversation that started out around, partying people and unpleasant neighbors, and we should do something about short-term rentals. And as soon as we looked at that, we realized, but there's nothing about any kind of rental. And that was Mike's point that was strongly made. Fine, do something about short-term rentals, but you need a foundation of rental units to enforce first. At the same time, we were encountering the need to do the pressure to look at what we're calling accessory dwelling units, or some people call, family living, or these other mother-in-law suites, etc. And as soon as that came up, we recognized, well, if we're going to do anything about that at all, yes or no, if we're going to do anything about that at all, if they're rented, they have to be subject to the same rental court ordinances. Well, we didn't have any. That's why we're sitting here tonight looking at three things together. That's the reason why. To talk about short-term rentals, you have to talk about residential units. To talk about accessory dwelling units, you better get your rental stuff. And that's why the three of those are bundled in together. And it kicked off a few years ago and it got there. Okay, that gets us to the top of page 2. The next section is simply pointing, and anytime ordinances are delivered, they come with a lot of lawyerly definitions, because they need to. All this section here is saying, well,
Could you mind if I interrupt you? I'm so sorry.
if what?
If I interrupt you?
Sure.
I just want to say, I know that there's 3 agreements on here, but there's a lot of different opinions. I think the owner occupied, while primarily should be the same, all of the bad actors, the original idea of this is not from owner occupied people. So they're very different. You know, you want parties, you want public nuisance, all the things, those are not owner occupied homes. So that's why I think it's very different. But in terms of safety and regulation, maybe, but the way that the permits go and requirements for those, I'm not sure I would treat them the same. Because I obviously want people to grow old in their homes, I want people to be able to afford to live here, and if they're making money as an owner-occupied unit, a room in their home, I think that those are very different. That's all I want to say.
And perhaps as we walk through this, you'll find places where we might want to make changes to recognize that. So I accept your comment and look for places where we can bring that discussion to bear on our recommendations. Okay, so this is not, when and if there's an ordinance written, it'll have more in there of other definitions of that. This is simply calling out that we recognize that those 2 things have to have definitions in there, and there's some starters on that. Okay, I'm gonna ask you all to look at then the next 3 sections under changes applying to all rental units, general requirements for residential rentals, registration, and town right to inspect. Those are the ideas, the concepts that we're suggesting be applied to all residential units. Rather than read them out here, I'm gonna ask you guys to ask questions or make recommendations on them.
I have a couple, Rob. On, under general requirements, and it's referring back to the town right to inspect. It's saying on bullet point 2, you know, upon request. So my thought is somewhere, you know, as this thing moves forward, need to have a definition of what triggers an inspection. We talk about an initial inspection after you've registered, which is great, and then every 3 years, great. But we just need to define what triggers an inspection after the initial, but before the 3-year. In case that would be interpreted upon request as being, you know, something to trigger that, we need to have some guidance as to what would trigger something in between an initial and every 3rd year.
There's a big section in that state law, and it would call, what it says is complaint-driven inspection. So the initial ones for, registration, then you can pick a date, say 3 years, you come back, and then there's complaint-driven. So complaint, obviously, somebody, tenant calls and has a complaint. So there's separate sections in the state code and the code that I was looking at that refers to how those all work.
Okay.
And they're
Some means of
defined,
addressing it.
and very, yeah, it's very clearly defined how they
Okay.
all go.
Perfect.
And then a lot of the stuff that's listed there about the registration, that's actually also in the state code. It might not be exactly how it's worded, but it's pretty close to that.
And I can forward, I don't know, does everybody have in their packet a copy of the state, the code, rental? I can forward that to everybody.
Okay,
Those-
yeah.
Yeah, so I'll,
I think I'm looking at the wrong thing, but maybe I'm not. Thank you for forwarding it.
So, you know, I'm gonna suggest that in the version of this, on that second bullet point, we will add a sentence or 2 that references Mike's explanation that this is typically driven by complaints.
Does that mean that we're gonna have regular intervals of inspection, or are these inspections triggered by complaints and other things?
It could be both.
But which one are we
It could be
doing?
both, or it could just be initial and complaint. It could be however we want to write it.
I like initial and
Yep.
complaint.
There's
because I
another
think it's
section on change of ownership, that's again in state code, so there's verbiage on that too, if it changes ownership. But after an initial inspection, if everything's fine, and there's no complaint, it should be the same. That would be the assumption. So,
So the third point under town right to inspect, required every 3 years, that
that
could
was
be
just
waived.
an idea. Yeah.
Okay, so that could be
We could put whatever we want there.
stricken if you wanted
I
to.
don't think it's necessary.
Well, and to Jim's point, it's expensive.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you limit your inspections to complaint only,
Yeah.
then you're not gonna prevent any occurrences from manifesting until
Complaints.
they're already an issue.
Mhm.
So it's gonna
That's a
take
good point.
a lot of extra effort, but you should want to prevent problems, not just identify them afterwards and try to fix them.
I agree with that. I like the idea of a baseline inspection, and then looks great, and then take it from there. Could be at a regular interval or not, but the complaint idea. I mean, I don't know as much about the rentals in our town as I should.
To your point, it makes it more proactive.
What's that?
It makes it more proactive,
Yes.
as long as it's not
Hopefully.
overly burdensome, so I guess that time frame is what,
Hopefully while the unit is vacant, before you'll
Mhm.
actually rent it to someone.
Right.
the,
How fast does everybody read? I'm gonna skip to page 3. After required equipment and before maximum occupancy, all new units must be legally constructed. That's gonna say lawfully. So another reason for this is we've had some illegally created rental units in town. Some are more infamous than others,
Oh, the wrong zoning district?
like the trailer in the guy's driveway that most of us know about. But you know, putting a kitchen and bathrooms in a barn with no permit and then going out and renting it isn't make me real happy. So I'd like to have a way to stop that, and that's why we were looking at, you know, they have to be lawfully created with permits. So we can outlaw the ones that weren't.
Well, the first line of defense is the zoning ordinance. Is it zoned properly for
No.
multi-units? You know, before you ever get involved with, was it constructed properly?
So actually, perhaps that, if we wanted to be economical and put it in one statement, we could change that statement to all new units must be properly zoned and lawfully constructed.
Yes. How active is the county health department in all of these issues? Or are they not existent?
I have a personal friend who's,
Yeah.
I have a personal friend who is in charge of the county health, and I love him, and he's a great man, and he doesn't have the budget to do anything.
No.
He does not.
Do you require their permission to assume some of the,
Oh, we don't either.
do you require their permission to assume some of the responsibility that they don't do?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, aren't they in charge of health and safety issues in the county?
Not for rental property.
I think there's probably some overlap there, right?
Yeah, the overlap is unsafe building, and again, I'm gonna use the one down the street, where we've had a few instances of trying to remove people from a house. So you have to have Adult Protective Services, me, and the health department in conjunction to stop. It takes 3
Okay.
prongs to get somebody out of a house. Marin, that may be good, but it's very difficult to do. But yeah, the health department is called in if I have an unsafe building that has some sort of health issue, so then I call them. And otherwise, they don't have any say-so in anything.
Okay.
It's after we contact them, basically. Or if a family member contacts them, they
Okay.
contact me, so it's sort of circular. But they don't regularly do any inspections, and they're not
Okay.
required to. The line after that is sort of kind of fun. I've kicked this around for a while. There used to be a rule of thumb in California. It's not a law, it's a rule of thumb. 2 persons per bedroom plus 2 people is the occupancy of a house. So Rob and I kicked that around and threw it in here. Some of these places are, let's just say there's a lot of bunk beds in some of the beach rentals and stuff like that. There's a couple advertised for 16 beds, and they're just slammed full of bunk beds and stuff like that. That's kind of why we wrote that in there. We're trying to minimize the number of people that show up at a house. And we also put in here something about parking, so that they have parking available for whoever's renting the property. We've had, not very often, but we've had some big parties. And again, I don't know how if we can legislate that or not, but we've had people advertise parties and they show up as 100 people at this rental house. And then the police are involved and it's kind of a nightmare. But I've been in a few and they're loaded up with bunk beds and they're trying to get as many people in there as they can. And I don't know if we can legislate that or not, Chris. I'm just saying that was a rule of thumb.
I thought that was a protected class of people, large families, and
I
it's
don't
the
know.
Federal Fair Housing Act.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think maybe you can regulate it, but you definitely not with children.
Well, yeah, correct. So that's.
And
why
this
we're
is
trying to
written,
come up
so
with
it's
a rule
not,
of thumb.
not including children.
Maybe
I think it says,
Maximum
oh, it does
occupancy
say
area.
not including. Oh, sorry, Rob, you're right.
Shouldn't there be a distinction between adults and children?
Yeah, probably.
And the age ought to be a lot higher than 2 years old.
Perhaps,
Okay.
Yeah.
I
perhaps.
mean, if you have a big family, you might have 4 kids, 4 small kids in one room.
Right.
I feel you.
That's the way we used to go on vacation when I was a kid. We get one hotel room and sleep on the floor. You know. So I don't know how or if we can regulate that. We were just discussing.
They do in hotels though. I know that because.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I mean, but this is, if you start cramming a whole bunch of people into a small house, and maybe they're, a bunch of friends, and where are they gonna park? So that's been the complaint we've had for a number of years in different locations, depending on what it was. We
But-
actually had discussions before from people who rented properties for longer periods of time. They complained about people who did short-term rentals, so that was always kind of interesting. I'm like, well, you're renting their house. Oh, yeah, but my house is monthly rental. Oh, okay, well, then you're complaining about something, you're doing the same thing, but you're just making a distinction.
Can you limit?
I don't know. I don't know that we
I
can.
don't know offhand, honestly, just taking notes on
Yeah.
how, I think there are ways
sounds
to
kinda
address
questionable.
some of these, yeah.
I think
These
it
are
is.
slippery
That's
slopes,
why
and
it's not
then,
a law I could find
and we
anywhere.
get into the age of them too, and then we're talking dependents. What if you have someone that is a two, right?
Right,
You're-
yeah,
you-
or
So you
whatever.
don't have capacity, but you're a dependent, but somebody,
So what we had put in the registration is that you have to put down the maximum occupancy of your unit, and maybe that's it. Everybody's accounted for. I was just in a house, they had triple bunk beds and 2 bedrooms, right by Rob's house.
But it's not rented.
It's not rented.
So they
It's
are
a
welcome,
family.
they are welcome to have all
Yeah.
of their cousins and nephews
Yeah,
and
it's not a
everybody
rental.
else.
It's family.
And I want to point out that the
Why is it
reason,
not okay in a rental? That's my point.
right, well,
Well, I think.
but I think there are,
I think the distinction is just simply they're renting, they're taking money from somebody, and the person they're taking money from should have some protections. of-
But it's
of what
voluntary.
the law is.
If they don't like that unit, they can go to another unit.
We're gonna do it anyway. Or if it's legally built, if there's property exiting and anything.
well,
Or
we
focusing
can
on-
regulate rentals in ways that we don't regulate owner-occupied buildings.
See, it's
I mean, all towns choose to do that. They don't say, they don't apply all the rental regulations to all homes.
Are we, with this occupancy load, are we focusing on just the short-term rental or all
No,
rentals?
all of it.
Yeah, everything above on these 2 pages, we haven't got to the short-term rentals.
But not owner
And
occupied.
in fact, that's one of the reasons why we put this here was to establish that we were, that this would apply to all rental units.
Because, I mean, I agree with the fact that I don't agree with the 2 persons per bedroom I mean, I'll speak from experience. When I was living in a 2-bedroom house and got emergency custody of my daughter, which added 3 kids in a bedroom, I had no choice.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew past that and got out of that situation, but it was still a temporary situation that would have made my situation incompliant.
Yeah.
And not all relationships anymore are compliant of 2 people either.
I'm with a group where we built 500 square foot housing, and our rule was 2 people could only live there. We're already being challenged on that. What do you do with a woman with 2 children?
Right.
It happened to be this lady has 6.
I think maybe what we should just do is have them tell us what their occupancy is. That's it. That way we know what it is. So we're not telling them how many they can or can't have, but there should be proper sleeping quarters for, if you're gonna advertise your.
So there's as is,
age.
they're storing it out and telling them to report. Another suggestion that we had 10 or 15 minutes ago was changing the definition of children to allow more flexibility there. So it's under 2, that could be a different number too. I'm disinclined to throw it out and self-report, because one of the reasons that we did this, frankly, at the beginning was people saying, there's too many people living in that unit, and try to set some kind of a guideline on it. I agree, 2 people per bedroom and 2 children or 2 would mean I could not have lived with my parents on the south side of Milwaukee, because there was 4 of us boys.
Talking about occupancy, and a question for Jay, as far as from a fire department perspective, I would think it'd be a nightmare coming up on a rental unit that's packed full of bunk beds, and, you know, there's a fire and you're trying to account for everybody and get everybody out from a rescue perspective. Is there anything that you're aware of on the books anywhere that addresses that sort of thing from a safety perspective of if you guys have to respond to a home that you're not sure how many people are there, et cetera?
I mean, that's a nightmare in anything, whether it's a residential house,
Right.
an apartment complex. You know, we walk in the doors, the foyer of Orchard, there's no telling how many people are in each apartment. So that's a nightmare in itself, when it comes to that. The nice thing about the rental agreement, and the documentation part on my end is if that information is shared with me, I can pull up an address and see this 123 Main Street is a rental. The current rental agreement says that there's 3 people in there, which includes a child. I can have a little bit more information, but again, we don't request that from a resident.
Right.
So it's kind of one of those things. I don't want to see a house packed with bunk beds that's a temporary rental where they're using it for a party and I walk in the door to people laying everywhere. But again, if I have a house party, it's the same thing. I own my house, so, and as a person, not as a fireman sitting at the committee, I think we need to be respectful of that. If I rent a house, it's kind of my house to do as I'm going. I think as our town, we just need to make sure it's a livable, we're not getting slumlords.
Let me make a suggestion to get us through tonight, because we will revisit this, even if we got through the whole document tonight, which we're not, and won't keep everybody till 9 o'clock tonight. We'll get a chance to look at the code, which is another chance to do it. Let me suggest just for tonight, we will unchange, not including children under 12 years as this document, but then we're gonna revisit this when it comes back to code. It kind of is a balance, a compromise, because I don't know what the right answer here is. But it still gives us a way, a marker to say, let's do something to control, to avoid overstuffed houses, but recognize that people have children and you can both have that in your home. And remember, anything we say here is going to apply to a short-term rental too. And recognize, yeah, okay, if you got a bunch of little preteens, sure.
Can we hear back from Chris on this, or just kind of put a note, if whatever Chris says is legal?
Well, that is gonna be true to every sentence and paragraph in here when it is translated to code. And
I think that it's best that we try to narrow down what your preferences are, right? And as we go, but I'm making notes of some of these.
Yeah.
but I-
My
I would
preference is
say
not to
yes.
include children at all. I like what Barry said, tell them to report the occupancy. I like that. I don't want to include any ages. But that's just me. I don't know if we're voting on this exactly, that's what I would say. But hearing nothing, no support, maybe you're right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if I think most rentals, they tell you what you can, you know, when I signed a rental agreement, you're not allowed to have more than 5 people living in this house while you're renting it. So if they have a limit that they put, I think that's
They're not
fair enough, but
supposed
then
to
that
put a
comes, the
limit.
landlord needs to enforce that, not
They're
not
not-
us, but at least we have an idea of what we're looking at when we deal with it, but.
I think with short-term rentals, they can, but I know with long-term rentals, they cannot. I know because I rent them and I have 11 people and it's, I can't do anything about it. Unless the HOA says something or the town says something, and I know town of Chesterton doesn't put a limit on it, and I know our HOA doesn't put a limit on it, so then I'm kind of stuck. But, so it's really confusing to talk about, but I think with short-term rentals, at least, if they report the occupancy, you know the occupancy, and you can enforce that, I would assume.
Right, and I think there's kind of a difference when we talk short-term rental and long-term rental. Usually when we're talking long-term rental, it's a family that's moving into a house. When it comes to how many kids there are and the living conditions, some of that just falls down to Child Protective Services and that parenting thing that we're not gonna regulate. I don't know that we should have much involvement in that. But the short-term rentals, that's where I think we need to look at it more, so we're preventing the massive house parties and the unsafe things that come from massive house parties. I mean, we've seen some of that already flow into the streets with car crashes from them leaving these parties, complaints from our citizens from parking and all of that stuff. But
Well, I
when it
don't
comes-
think you've seen toddler parties, so that's what I'm saying, like, we can leave the kids out of it completely.
Well, absolutely, I mean,
That's why I didn't like.
I don't wanna be homeless because I ended up adding a family member to my house.
Yeah, so that's why I didn't like the 12 and
Or
under.
getting fines or getting evicted because I'm violating, but again, it might even be adults too. I mean, what if I have my family and I move an adult because my daughter got abused and had to come home, had no place to go. Now I just added an adult. Am I supposed to tell my daughter no because my rentals,
I don't
our
think-
town rental says I can't have more than 2 people in a bedroom and she needs a couch to sleep on for now?
I really don't think it's allowed, but again, Chris can look up the Federal Housing Fair Act, what is it called? I think it's called the Federal Housing Act.
Fair housing.
And I think that would be discriminatory against large families, and I think it's a protected class of people.
Yeah, well, so, and then, but again, that's what we're talking about though, is limiting that, and then we're saying now that there may be a federal law that says we can't.
That's why I disagreed with him and his age, so that's why I said I'd like to leave it out completely.
Yeah, I'm not in support of limiting.
So,
I don't think, they think that's beyond our scope.
Yes,
Letting them know what their intended occupancy is, just
for
intended.
short term.
Yeah, well, definitely on short term. Yeah, if we can't on long term, that's fine. But
but when you say that, Jay, I mean, what I'm hearing Tara say is self-report. Just self-report when you register, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that really what you're saying too?
yeah, I'm self-reporting is fine. I don't wanna see us put a limit on it. I'm against putting a limit on it.
Right.
That's where I'm at.
So I think, yeah.
Self-reporting is fine. I'm against us putting a limit on long-term rental.
Right. And so I think Tara's saying self-report, and that applies to short-term and long-term. Is that more or less your position too?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have an issue with regulating short-term a little bit more so we don't have 20 people in a 2-bedroom house having a house party. But
So it's not exactly the same. You're saying.
I'm talking more families living in it long.
Yeah, totally good. So you guys are totally in the same spot. Let me just go real down quick. Can you guys just do a quick straw poll here? Where are you at, Jim?
Well,
Or you can say pass if you want.
we're in that position now. There's a lot of things, we had rules. One of them was guns. You can't stop somebody from renting a place because they carry a gun or have a gun. But it was numbers. How many people live with a significant other? Was it 2 adults and they have 2 kids? You got 4 people in a unit, you say only 2 could be in there. Because we came down, what happened if this woman happened to have 6 kids? How, you gonna put 500 square feet, you're gonna put 6 kids? Well, if you accept her, Well, how are we gonna turn her down? You can't turn her down, cause she has 6 kids, we're told.
Yeah. Mary, where's your head at?
I like the idea of, having some things a little bit different for the short terms versus long terms.
Similar to what Jay said.
And I do like the idea of self-reporting, like they say, this is what our maximum is.
Yeah. Jim?
I would be fine with that as well.
Ditto. So, I'm gonna feedback, what I'm hearing is that majority there are saying just self-report for general rental, but some kind of limit on short-term rental, but we don't know what that is.
Open for discussion.
Can I ask Jay something?
Sure.
Like in this room, there's a limit that the fire department will let be in here, correct?
Correct.
On the wall.
Who made up that rule? The state?
So it falls down to, I think it gets determined through the building code now. The fire code does have it too, but it's based on what it's used for.
Right.
And that breaks down to a formula,
Certain occupancy.
whether the seating is permanent, the tables are permanent, there's a whole formula for occupancy to figure out occupancy level.
So that'd be almost impossible to do with a homeowner.
Well, in a home, it's much different because your occupancy isn't figuring that the 60 people that are allowed in here are gonna be sleeping here either. They're based on standing or sitting.
That code doesn't apply to
Okay.
houses.
Yeah, and it won't apply to.
That's what I just-
at
That's
all.
why they make tiny homes, if 320 square foot house, if that's what you wanna live in, then, yeah. We're just, I think we should just be having them put it on their application that just says, this is the occupancy of the house. That way, Jay's got the information, I've got the information, if something happens, we know what the maximum is, it might be less than that if it's rented, but maybe we can't tell them how many people the maximum is. But-
Okay, so here's what I propose for tonight, for this issue,
Yeah.
where on, under the section with registration, I'm changing the thing where it says maximum occupancy to say, I'll put a sentence in there that basically says self-report upon registration. And when we get to the next page, under short-term rental guidelines, I'm adding a bullet for maximum occupancy, but I'm not writing anything there, because we get to talk about it next. Okay?
Yes.
Enough to move forward? Okay, any other changes or discussion about the general section, changes applying to all rental units? And if you don't say anything, we'll go on to short-term rental units.
The ADUs.
Okay? All right, process check at 7:30. Y'all are getting paid for this. I don't want to keep you here too long. I suggest that we don't plan on going through all of this tonight. We'll continue it then. But I'd like to start by having a discussion about the short-term rental guidelines, which is the next page and the 3 bullets beyond that. And then maybe we'll finish that, maybe we won't. But even if we do finish it, when we get to the end of that, we'll table the discussion and pick up accessory dwelling units next month. Is that a good social contract?
Yep.
Okay, so let's go to the next page, short-term rental guidelines. Let me point out one thing. The first bullet, all regular rental ordinance requirements must be met. So everything that we just talked about applies to it, which was Mike's point from the very beginning. Before you do short-term rentals, establish those. So they inherit everything else. Everything else in here is up for discussion. They were stakes in the ground that we did for the round robin of all the people that we talked to, our examination of code in other towns, and looking at the American Planning Association of Indiana's guidelines. Not that they correspond exactly to what any one of those are, but this is a place to discussion. So for instance, the first one says, all rentals must be contracted for and paid for a minimum of 7 days.
Yeah,
A lot of
I don't,
shaking heads.
I don't think it's
I disagree
realistic.
with that.
A lot of shaking heads here.
No, not realistic. I mean, you'll be eliminating everybody that comes here to visit the dunes for a weekend getaway.
Right.
I don't think we should put any minimum days.
I agree with
What is-
that.
Under 30 is a short-term rental, and that's, they can do 1 or 29 or 30.
100% agree.
I don't see any contradicting heads, striking that entirely. I'll say a comment about the third ball, about somebody's gotta be within 15 minutes.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Jim, or maybe, I think it was Jim who pointed out, maybe more than one person pointed out, the difference between owner occupied and non-owner occupied and the source of problems, right? But owner occupied and non-occupied is really hard to know about. So this was an effort to say, well, what's the real issue here? And that's like, well, we need somebody close by who can respond to an issue. So this was a way of dealing with that, that sort of walks around the fact that it's difficult to verify that it's owner occupied or not. That's where that came from. And it is similar, there, many municipal ordinances that say something about a requirement to the owner's responsibility to respond. This was a way of doing it.
Yeah, the way it's written there, I've had some issues with the defining a time that you're 15 minutes away, so, because how do you define that? If somebody gets stopped by a train, if they're gonna get real technical, or in this case, if it's 15 minutes, they'd have to be in the Duneland area. What if they lived in Valpo? It's not that far away. If they're responsive, it makes for kind of an odd requirement. Plus, you could be limiting the ability for, you may have people that are willing to invest, keep buildings, up and going and occupied so they aren't falling into disrepair and just, sitting there vacant. That like to buy up and do rental properties, but maybe they don't live right here. So you don't want to limit that market and limit people's ability to sell the property for that sort of thing too. That said, it also seems like when you have a lot of landlord issues, many times it's absentee owners that are far away and don't seem to care what's happening to the local community. So hopefully maybe there's ground in between we can find to address the absentee owner who doesn't care, that's not even in the area, but not being too restrictive. I don't know.
I agree, Jim.
I saw some verbiage in one of the codes or ordinances I was looking at it, and so they have to register, the owner has to register if there's a local agent. And I don't think it has 15 minutes, but it's got something about local agents, so I'd like to revisit that after I pull the other code out. I can send you the one I have.
And this sentence as written does
State
include
short rental.
agent.
Yeah, the state short-term rental code has a lot of this in it, so we could revise these to match that, then they'll take care of it. I know there's a house on Waverly, the owners in Arizona, but they have I think it's Arizona, they have or Vegas, they have an agent close by, very quick to respond, anytime there's an issue, we have no problems with it. It's right
A
there.
lot of
Would
units.
it be better to limit,
It's just
limit the
registration.
number of time, or the time limit that someone has, that an owner has to fix something that goes wrong, rather than where they live and how far away they are, If they might, if it's an issue with, say, for instance, the air conditioning goes out, well, the owner doesn't have to be close by, he's gonna call some guy that's gonna go and fix the air conditioner, so. Place a time limit maybe on responding and correcting.
On my side of things, I think it's important to have some sort of time limit on an emergency.
Yes.
Maybe not something as simple as, heating and air conditioning needs repair, well, I guess if it's freezing outside, but it's taxing on us. We've sat in apartment complexes for over an hour more, waiting on a maintenance person to show up to isolate electrical problem or something. So having somebody that is reasonable, I don't think 15, I think we need to extend a
I
little
think
bit
it's
more than
usually a
15.
distance, not a time.
Yeah, a little bit more than 15 minutes, or maybe, 20 miles or something instead of 15 minutes. But I think it's important for my end of things that our people aren't sitting there for hours waiting for the maintenance guy to get there. And we've had several issues not even being able to get a hold of them in some complexes. So I do think a time limit is important on emergencies. Not all problems are going to require them to come out in 20 minutes, 15 minutes, but some may. So maybe an emergency clause in there that requires that. And that's on all rentals, not just the short term.
Okay, let me throw out a possible scenario. So replace this with one bullet with really 3 bullets, which says, owners if they have an agent, they must register the agent or themselves as the person responsible to respond. Number two, in an emergency, they must respond in X amount of time, which I'll look to Jay to make a suggestion for what it is. And a third thing, that owners or agents must be able to resolve other issues within X period of time, and maybe I'll ask Mike to make a suggestion of that.
And I really think that should be transferred to the rental code, since this is referring that all of the long-term rental code is applicable. I think it should start there instead of putting it here and leaving it out on the other side. Because that could be a problem on both sides, or both types.
And shift to all general rental.
Yeah.
I hate to disagree, but I still don't like the time frame. I do like a distance, because, I mean, I live in town. You might not be able to reach me at 2 a.m. if I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think most of those are written by distance.
I do like a distance better.
What about
it-
emergency?
it's-
What about Jay's point?
I'm sorry, Jay, I think a lot of towns deal with that. I don't know how to prevent that, but I don't know if writing that is enforceable, like, it would help you at all. If it does, I would do it, but I don't think it would. I live in town, I have rentals. If it's 2 a.m. and someone calls me, I'm a pretty heavy sleeper. That's why I live next to the South Shore. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't hear my phone. I don't know, do I get fined for that? I don't know. It's an emergency, so someone's having a heart attack and you're waiting for me to open a door or something.
That's not the type of thing we would call you for, because we definitely wouldn't. These are the
What's an
types of-
emergency?
These are the types of things, there's an electrical hazard in the house and we need something isolated, there's a water leak, there's a danger to the resident, there's a danger, you know, we have a apartment complex where we have issues with their stove burners going on all the time, getting that repaired or fixed or removed from the residence. Those types of things that are emergency. Life safety, for the fact of, we're not gonna wait, we're gonna kick a door down, we're gonna do that stuff. But we have, an active CO leak from the furnace, and we need to do a massive evacuation or something like that on the larger ones. You know, my people have sat in apartment complexes for 2 hours before.
Do you think changing the code for the time is going to impact that any different?
I don't know that it's gonna change it. Maybe the first time it happens and there is a fine base or something on it, it might change it. Like, oh shoot, we gotta answer their calls. You know, I'll use you're a heavy sleeper. Me as a responder, that's not my problem. My problem is I need somebody that's responsible for this property to be able to get here and answer questions. I might need your insurance company. I might need,
Do you wanna find the insurance? I just don't see
I
it.
may need information from you to carry, maybe this is an arson, and I need you to get there and give me insurance information. We may need to do board up, we may need to secure the residence. There's a long list of things that could be under that emergency basis, and, you know, us sitting there or maybe as simple as we forced a door because we had to get to that person having a heart attack, and now I can't leave the house unsecured. So it's my job to sit there while you get a good night's sleep and make sure nobody breaks in and steals this person's
This is
stuff.
hypothetical. This is
I mean, no disrespect, I'm sorry. I mean, no disrespect, but it's not you're the person responsible to come fix it. We're gonna punish our firemen that have to sit there and wait because they have an open window I'm gonna deal with it in the morning.
I mean, I understand your point. I wish it would change things. I just don't think it would, but I don't mind it being in the code if you want it in there.
But I think, I mean, it all has to fall down as, do we have an enforceable way to enforce it, or are we just gonna say, shame on you, don't do it again? If it's gonna be a shame on you, don't do it again, then there's really no point in putting it in.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that. I think there is a point in having something that at least you can say, shame on you, it's a place to start.
Right.
Mary?
I agree 100% that, especially because now in the world of everybody's the investors for real estate are everywhere. I work for a realtor organization. And so they may not be nearby, but they need to have an agent. But they have to, I think, have a sense of responsibility because they're coming into a beautiful place. They're buying up some properties and they're gonna be renting them out. Well, it's up to us, I think, as the town then, to set parameters that even if we're right now just saying shame on you, it's in the books and it's like, oh no, we have this, that's not gonna work, you know, something, but I just feel like I think it's a good move for us to set some things in place now, because it's only gonna grow.
Yeah, I'm kind of where Mary's at. I'm not worried about the Duffys. I'm worried about private equity.
Well, and
Private
this is actually why we're on, is a problem everywhere. We've had a problem with Discovery Charter School's fire alarm. I've had volunteer firemen sitting at Discovery Charter School for 2 hours at 3 in the morning trying to silence their alarm so they can go home, and nobody is coming from the school to fix the problem.
Oh, well, that's a
So
commercial.
that's where this is all coming in, so my guys went all night without sleep because somebody actually slept through their phone. And they didn't update their information for the new superintendent that's 10 minutes away.
Okay,
That's a
So-
shame.
okay,
So that's where,
to move the discussion forward, here's what I'm gonna suggest. I'm gonna make 4 changes. I'm gonna call on Mike, I'm gonna call on Jay to put a provisional number in. We'll make the changes. We'll get to look at it again at least twice. Next month when we review this, and a third time when we go there. But just to move the discussion forward, here's the 4 changes. This section goes to general rental, not just it. Number 2, it starts out by saying the owner must either certify as his own agent or provide all the contact information for an active agent. The 3rd change will be the agent or the owner is required to respond in an emergency within, Jay, I'm looking at you.
I mean, reasonable, I think they should at least they should be residing within 30 minutes.
Okay, we'll get to visit again.
And that's,
Why not?
and I get that, I call Jim here and I say, hey, I have a problem in your rental. He's not experienced like I am of throwing clothes on in 30 seconds and running out the door. It's gonna take him 15, 20 minutes to get
At least.
dressed and out of the house, might have to take medicine, who knows? But at least then they're within a reasonable distance of, and even if it's mileage, and the other important part is not so much that they live within that area, because I'll use Tara as an example, she lives within 10 minutes, but if she's not answering her phone, she's 3 hours.
I should have never given that example.
And I'm gonna pick on you for it.
Can I make a suggestion? In insurance, we always ask, in my office, who are 3 people that know where you're at all time?
There you go.
And we had their phone numbers. And we would call them up and say, look it, so-and-so's insured with us. Just want you to know, we're not trying to sell you anything, which is a lie. We always say that. But if we ever call you, here's the reason. He gave us your number and that. That's number 1. Number 2, I was gonna hold off till the end. I wrote it down here. One thing you also should have on the application is proof of insurance. I gave a talk over at Summertree. There are people there, elderly people, young maybe too. In the wintertime, they rent out their houses when they go to Florida. They were shocked when I told them, you don't have any coverage. Well, I'm not insured with you. You don't have any coverage. You got a homeowner's, not a rental. So they need to show you proof of insurance.
Okay, you won that argument. It's in here. What's your 3rd point?
That was good, solid.
What's your 3rd, was that it?
Yeah, and the other thing is, the reason for that is like I told my daughter, she's 4 buildings, units in her building. If one of them burns down and there's no coverage, what do the other 3 people do?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a very serious, whether you have a home or not. You can get a rider for it, it's not that expensive. 90% of people don't even know that. Because I did a lot of Long Beach and Beverly Shores.
It applies to Uber vehicles too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike, the last change is, we're expanding this to 2 points. And the last one is that the owner or agent has X amount of time to resolve issues. You get to 1 day, 2 days, 4 days, 7 weeks.
Yeah.
What do you want to say?
I'll look it up first.
Okay.
Usually I'd say 7 days, but
Mike, number of days. Okay. Renters may only park on provided parking spots on the property owner, not on the street.
can't say not on the street. Public street.
Don't park on the street overnight.
Oh, I hate that.
All town ordinances apply to noise, all town ordinances applying to noise apply. Note that town quiet hours are from 7 to 7.
I thought they were to 10. Or
No.
is it 7?
7 to 7.
I looked it up,
I
though.
didn't even know that.
No, 7 to 7.
I will look it up again.
I look it up all the time, that's the code.
See you next month. Garbage and recycle, this is a weird one, I admit it. Garbage and recycling must be put out the morning of collection, but may not be put out more than 1 day ahead of time.
We don't have that in our code now, so I don't know how we can put it on the rental.
Yeah, I don't want it.
Yeah,
Well, that's funny, I thought that wasn't.
yeah.
No, I get asked that every once in a while when somebody leaves their garbage cans out constantly and they call me, it's not in the code.
Yeah, I know where it comes from, especially is it's a collection day. You know, if you're in Porter Beach, it's great. Because the collection day is Monday, most of the short-term rentals go home Sunday night. No big deal. But if your collection is not that, and somebody puts 3 garbage cans, all this crap out, and it's there for 5 days, that's where it came from.
I don't think we can put it in there if we don't have it in the regular code. so.
Anybody else want to make a comment other than Mike saying to make it go away?
I mean, I don't know, just in general, no offense, but I don't know why we're repeating other town ordinances.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's
I mean,
already there. I
know
don't
that
think it should.
We already have an ordinance on
Noise.
I mean, that's just something maybe on an application or whatever we can put on and just remind your people that our quiet time is 7 to 7, but I don't know, because then if we ever change that, then we have to change it in multiple
Right.
ordinances anyway.
Right.
The fact that it's in here doesn't mean that it will end up in a new ordinance, because of exactly that reason. But this was a.
Kind of like the last bullet point, no illegal drugs or substances or prostitution, I mean, that's pretty much, I think those are already written in plenty of other places. I mean, or we just sum it up with no illegal activity.
He's selling his property right now. Yeah.
That's it, actually.
I can tell you why it's in there, because it was a way of putting in one place, a quick way of addressing how do you pull someone's permit?
Well, that's just like I said, then, no illegal activity,
Yeah.
because and there's many other things they shouldn't be doing there either.
Yeah. Okay, that one's gone. Short-term rental property owners must register with the state of Indiana as a merchant for the collection of taxes.
Right.
Okay.
That's in the state code.
Short-term rentals that are not the primary residence of the owner require a special use permit. So this is something that towns are doing. It makes it very easy for the owner occupier to just go ahead, they don't have to do it. But if you're gonna buy a property for the purpose of renting it, then go in for the special use permit, which triggers the special use permit
I
process.
like it. I like it a lot.
We have a special use permit existing now that we haven't used in the whole time I've been here. So we already have that. We just aren't using it. So we have the process already.
Ready to go. Nice.
Okay, so that one's okay. The next one builds on that. Short-term rentals must be owned by the property owner for a minimum of 6 months before seeking a special use permit.
I have a problem with
I
that.
don't think we
Yeah, I
can do that.
disagree.
It's arbitrary.
Cross that off.
I mean, if I bought the house to rent it, I should be able to,
Yeah,
as long as I get all my permits, I should be able
It's
to.
already turnkey, it's looking great.
Yeah,
Why do you have to pay
We gotta
6
pay for
months
6
for the
months and
mortgage
lose money.
and
Right. That makes sense.
I won't bother to tell you where it came from because I'm wasting my breath. Okay, permits will automatically be suspended for illegal activities at the property.
There's actually a process that's
Yes.
written in the code. We just follow the process for that.
They get 3 chances. And that's in the state code, right?
It's in state code,
Yeah.
yeah. There's actually a whole process. Then we'll just copy the process.
Okay,
Again, I have a copy. I'll send it to you tomorrow.
okay, noting that.
And take-
Replace with the process, copy state process.
Yeah, except it stink, you know, you rent to somebody, you think they're all upstanding, and then they go rogue on you, and you lose your permit,
Yeah.
something you can't
yeah,
directly.
you never know
control.
what they're planning on doing in it.
Yeah,
Okay, the next one came from other towns. The town of Porter permits a maximum of, to be determined, short-term special use permits at any time.
Don't know if we can do that.
But is it needed even? Like, are we overrun with short-term rentals?
Not yet.
I can tell you what other communities have
Overrun
done.
with short-term rentals.
They've done this, but they've done it by a section of town basis. And it always starts with saying, if you're here, you're in, because there's nothing we can do about it.
I don't think we can do that.
But in this over here, here's the maximum, and it's a way of like New Buffalo, again, Michigan, it's different,
Yeah,
right? But-
I think it prohibits specifically zoning something where you can't have a rental. I think that's
Yeah.
specifically a bad thing. If they're doing a registration, you know, I've read this 1,000 times, Rob. If you're doing a registration, why would they need a special use permit?
Right.
Isn't that repetitive? They're getting a registration. We're acknowledging they're.
No, I don't think it's.
No, a registration, everybody has to register.
They all have to register, yeah.
They all
for
have to
sure.
register. If you're gonna do a short-term rental,
You wanna have a special-
and you are not a owner-occupied
Okay.
building,
Well, you can't do that, okay.
then file a special use
Yeah,
permit.
I just don't know if you can limit the number.
I doubt that we
What
can.
grounds would you have to turn one down?
Well, the
Yeah.
code says that you can't interpret your code as to act, but it is another step, so that it may be a
Just a step.
deterrent in and of itself that people don't do the
Right.
process, then they're not following your rules.
Yeah.
But you can't refuse to issue one.
What's,
Not so far.
as long as they, as long as they
all
comply
the
with the
procedure.
requirements. I mean, it is a check the box sort of
Yeah.
thing, but
Yeah.
it is putting people through the paces that if they don't, and it, I guess there are some communities that do want to limit rentals, right? And how many short-term rentals?
They've run into
And-
really major problems
And,
lately.
and while you're not able to, there are procedures you can put in place
Right.
that serve a little bit of that.
You would never be able to limit it if you didn't put a mechanism in. You can put a mechanism in to say, non-occupied, owner-occupied properties must require a special use permit, and you can stop there.
That's like a rental car, right?
If you wanted to go the next step, like some of the lakefront towns have said, you know, we want to control it so that all of our neighborhoods are not overrun by short-term rentals, then the next step is, oh, well, then there's a maximum number of special use permits in an area. And that's where this came from, frankly.
Okay.
But I saw a lot of nodding heads, shaking heads, I should say.
Well, I would mention, some owners will be renting out just for the summer, so maybe when you talk about owner occupied, you should say for longer than 6 months or 7 months, 212 days. You might want to put a day number or define what owner occupied means. Because I might stay for the winter and the school year, but I might leave for 60 days. Am I still owner occupied?
Well, in your homestead exemption, right?
But I guess I'm not insured, apparently.
But
you're
in
still
your
owner-
homestead exemption, people are getting them, right,
I think you have to be
they've
6
started
months.
reviewing and trying, and there's software companies out there that track short-term rentals, but if you qualify for that, for instance, you're right, you may go and have just enough, timing it so you make the money during the season and.
That's a pretty common thing, you know, people time their periods in
Is
Florida.
Yeah,
it
so
6
your
months
po-
that you get the
Your
homestead?
point, yes, I believe that cutoff or the majority of it, right? So
that's
there'd
what
be,
we-
so yeah, I think
Okay.
that we could tailor it around,
The
because
homestead.
owner occupied, yeah, what's the definition of that? You know, it's their residence, but.
Okay, so, and I'm gonna adjourn, and I'm gonna ask for an adjourn in about 3 minutes. Let me wrap up the summaries I've got so far. To go back a little bit, the thing about permits will be automatically suspended for illegal activities of the property was going to be replaced by a description of following the state process for that. The town of Porter permits a maximum number of short-term special use permit. I think that's being stricken by consensus. However, we're going to go back and either at the place for the first time where owner occupied is mentioned, or adding a definition earlier, we're gonna define what does owner occupied mean along the lines that Tara has suggested. Okay, let's do one more. The fine for renting a short-term rental unit without a special use permit by an owner for whom the property is not their primary residence is to be determined. And we don't have to determine that. Mike's gonna make the fees and fines congruent with the rest of the town's code. Is the concept of, hey, if you go to a short-term rental and you happen to have a special use permit, there is a fine for doing that.
Is that
Okay,
another one where we just say they're gonna be fined in per our fees, so we're not putting it in two places? Instead of putting a dollar amount in here, say per our, because we have a code for fines, correct?
Yeah, it would get added to the code for fines.
Instead of putting a dollar amount in here, it would be per our town code for fines. So again, something we don't have to change in multiple locations.
okay, let's do that.
Excellent.
Okay, I'm drawing a line on the page there.
Let me just finish. Well, I guess you don't have to.
What's the consensus of the group here? Stick around for another half hour?
You think it'll take 30 minutes?
Just finish to ADUs.
Yeah.
Just finish the page where it starts ADUs.
Okay,
That'll take
propose that we
5
go
minutes.
to, go up to ADUs, and we'll save ADUs for August. Plus, you'll get the edited document back with the changes in it. Okay, fine for violating other short-term regulations. Again, leave that in there, but follow Jay's suggestion per the town, code with regard to fines. The owner of a short-term rental shall not rent premises to a group where the on-site person of record, i.e. primary renter, is less than 25 years old.
That's my question to Chris. I know rental companies use that, but I was told if it was ever challenged, it would never stand up. How can you, just like us, we can't pick the people we're trying to choose, what age group they're in.
Yeah, I have a concern with that.
25.
That's age discrimination.
Yeah, anything that is age oriented in this,
Yeah.
I just have already
Well-
noted to make sure we confirm, but I have a concern that whether the enforceability of that.
What does regulate a person signing a contract to rent a house?
State law.
18
Well,
years?
Yeah, I mean, 18 years old is
Legal
capacity to sign, right?
They can charge you a premium if you're an officer.
It's unwise.
Then you got the emancipated minor. There's state law written for that. I don't think
Yeah,
it's-
for 18.
Can I make a note here that says, next time we talk, Chris will explain what the state law regulates. I mean, a landlord is, so you're saying a landlord is regulated by state law on renting to minors? True?
Well, a minor can't contract, they don't have the
You
capacity
can't,
to.
no. But I don't know that you can pick an age. I think that's, again,
Again, we could send
this,
them
this, what is that, 4-page state law?
Can't smoke a cigarette.
Very specific on
or
what.
drink.
Yeah.
Yeah, might be easier just to have that planted in.
No, I haven't copied.
You're right.
Just plant the whole thing.
Speaking for the public that's not here, that put this in here, how about if I'm gonna write here, council to confirm
We'll look it up.
limits of that, state regulation, okay? Thank you. Use of recreational vehicles, campers, watercraft, tents, hammocks, removable structures, or any other mobile or temporary structure to increase occupancy is prohibited. This goes back to an example Mike provided about an hour ago.
I like that one if we can do it.
I feel like it's in the permit, like if you're getting a permit for those, you know, if you're not permitted and you're renting it out, then you're fined, right? So I think it's kind of taken care of in the permit. But you can, it's
We don't-
redundant
we
to
don't-
put it back in here, but you can do that. It's,
Yeah, we don't want people putting 10 tents in their yard and renting them out, so.
but if they don't have permits for them, or
Right.
they would have one permit and they would tell you the occupancy.
And it shouldn't include tents, hammocks, and all that stuff.
How about if we leave this,
I like the idea of having it in there so you don't apply for the use permit for that.
Oh, there you go. Maybe, so
Yeah.
maybe it's not redundant, maybe it's
That's,
informative.
I think it's, the point is, don't do that, you know,
and in the same spirit, the next one,
same thing.
outdoor and temporary toilet facilities may not be used to increase occupancy.
No outhouses?
You would think that's common sense.
Hey, Rob, Jennifer over here is asking what page you're on.
We're on the page that has short-term rental guidelines and 2 photos at the top.
Yeah,
And we're about the.
pictures of 2 houses
We're
at the
about the
top.
6th or 7th bullet from the bottom.
I think I'm missing pages. Oh, no, I found it.
Okay. All right, the next one could be,
Short-term rental guidelines, just go on that.
sorry,
Short-term rental guidelines.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right. Right, the next one might be a problem because of what we did earlier. Parties involving more people than the maximum occupancy are prohibited.
Unless
We
they're,
may have killed that,
unless they're violating some other law, I don't think you can
yeah.
just prevent that.
Yeah, no,
General
I
consensus?
don't like that either. I mean, you do a VRBO and it's a family reunion, it only, that's for, for 8, but all the rest of the family are local and they all show up because they have a huge,
Political
huge-
home rule,
yeah,
political fundraiser,
yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of scenarios you can come up with.
yeah, yeah.
I hear consensus, go on. The property cannot be advertised for parties or events.
Huh.
It's not an event.
I think that's different than
make
what
it
we were talking about
more-
prior. I think that's a good one that we shouldn't have.
You do like that?
I don't think you can tell people how to advertise, but I don't know. Or if you could, I don't think you should.
Well, we have this, I think, everybody know where Dave Phillips lives? Okay, the house next to him is a short-term rental. That happened in his house. And 100 people showed up and it was a nightmare, that house next door to him.
But was it, how did that do, was it advertised for an event?
It was an advertised Facebook party and everybody showed up and
But
buried.
was it, but was the rental advertised?
It's an Airbnb.
Facebook,
And the
Short-term
Airbnb said, events welcome?
open house.
No, the people that were renting it put out party, called
But
everybody
this is
over.
for, they wanna say like, the short-term rental owner could advertise in their advertisement, we welcome events. But I don't,
No, I think Rob's saying that the renter can't advertise for parties, that's what that.
That's a different business. Being in the wedding and bar mitzvah event space is a different business that anybody in an R1, R2, R3, anywhere else is gonna say, whoa, that's not that.
I agree.
We're sticking them with short-term rental, that's the way it is. But people do not wanna be next to an event space.
well, it could be a charcuterie party, I don't know.
Could be,
Like,
yeah, it's scrapbooking.
yeah, like,
weekend, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that you can do that, and how would you
Right.
check? That's what we're asking, how do you
Right.
check it?
I would like it to be scratched, but I'll listen to more.
What if you put the onus on the owner of the building? In other words, in their rental agreement with that renter, they're stipulating if you can or cannot have parties. So that if something goes bad and it goes rogue, the owner of the building's on the hook because they would have given permission for it to happen.
I'll say what you said in a slightly different way. We have existing code that deals with nuisance.
Yes,
Somebody calls the cops, and the cops come and say, hey, you guys are noisy and rowdy. That's a tick mark. That's another way of dealing with it.
Okay.
I like
But
that.
do y'all understand my point about you live in a neighborhood?
Yeah.
And someone built or constructed a house in order to events. That's not what short-term rental
That's
intention was
what I
about.
was referring to with my disagreement of, I don't want, we're gonna have a B96 at this, for a B96 party. But again, that doesn't eliminate, we can't eliminate, I rented an Airbnb and we're having a get together to,
The barbecue.
This is
That's our party.
both short range or short term and long term though, isn't it? This provision about the parties involving more people than maximum occupancy.
You're saying it would be an issue for either one? Is that what you're saying?
The way it's written, it appears to apply to both long-term and short-term.
Well,
Do you want to just apply to Airbnb and things like that, or?
well, the fact that it's on the short-term rental guidelines page,
Oh, these are all short-term guidelines.
yeah, that's why it says short-term guidelines at the top.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I like
Yeah.
what you said, Rob, about it being the owner is if it's not nuance, but a nuisance, then the owner is responsible. I like that wording better.
Well, cause then those things can stack up to the revocation process,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Agreed.
explain again.
Those things can stack up, right, the strikes.
Oh, yeah, that's
to
the way our
revocation process.
nuisance ordinance, which we passed.
But the revocation process in general, so that could be one of those things that when you write in the process, and the state code provides for that,
Right.
that special use.
And when we go back to the code, we can make sure that that's clear, right?
Would you say owner is responsible for parties and events?
The owner's responsible for
The use, and then
For the
needs
use
to
of
match the
it.
use of the zoning district it's in and all
Yeah.
of those things.
I mean, I think the owner could require those, but I don't think the town can require
Yeah,
limiting parties.
And I think
We
that
have to wait
the,
until they violated some other provision.
and I
Like
think
no
the
access.
incentive for the owner is to be compliant or be revoked and not be able to do
Yeah.
what they seek to do.
Sort of like the last line, you know, or we were talking about, no illegal activities, you know, if they violate town codes, then there's a whole bunch you listed below that violate town codes. So we don't have to necessarily list no parking in the grass, but,
Well,
Maybe
all of those
that's-
kinds of things accumulate at
maybe
the end.
there should be a catch-all for, no, I don't know, we need to say it, but violating town codes gets you the revocation process started, like Chris said, you start getting strikes against you.
Or maybe the application process makes some acknowledgement on behalf of the owner that you're aware of the
Yeah.
code and you're aware of these violations could lead to revocation.
Right.
Yeah, give them an incentive to give that list to the renter.
And, the ignorance of the law is no excuse kind of thing.
Okay, I'm capturing that as a change, because I think we're gonna march through these things and people are gonna say, I'll cross that stuff out. On the assumption that we clarify and underscore the nuisance and add this to the process of applying in the first place. And I may call you up, Chris, to help with the wording of that, but it's gonna be, all compliance issues and our nuisance regulations, blah, blah, blah. You're acknowledging, okay, et cetera. Okay, therefore,
I would say everything following that falls under that provision.
loose garbage and debris.
Mm-hmm.
No parkings in yards, grass, or non-designated areas by short-term rentals.
Those are all
That's
already
all in the code, yeah.
Fireworks prohibited. Well, fireworks are not in fact prohibited, they are regulated.
Yeah. So just follow town code.
I just wanna say one thing. Do you think that people come from Illinois, buy a lot of fireworks, and come to Indiana houses to shoot them off? And the answer is, hell yes.
I haven't seen
But,
it. Maybe down by you.
oh, absolutely, by me. Okay, no storage of bikes, watercraft, wagons, beach toys, trailers, coolers, or any loose items in front of the house.
I disagree.
I disagree.
Yeah.
If I brought my bikes and I ride them for the day and I put them in front of the house, I'm sleeping, and then I'm gonna take them out in the morning.
I put my motorcycle there.
You intend that to mean from the owner to have stored a whole bunch of stuff for people to play with, or the people that are renting it?
This is short-term rentals that we're talking
I
about.
mean, I don't want a
Right.
jet
If
ski.
I mean, where did that come
If I
from?
travel, well, even if I
Yeah.
travel with my jet ski, I rented an Airbnb at Porter Beach and I'm
Right.
parking it there, and then I'm gonna go launch it in Portage the next day and spend the
Right.
lake, and then I'm gonna go back to the Airbnb.
Gotta
I
put
mean,
someplace.
It's my travel. I'm a mountain biker, so I'm staying at, we got bike trails everywhere. I'm staying there because it's close to the bike trails. I
Or-
can't
or
put
do
the
you
bikes in
mean
front of the
that's
house.
provided by the owner of the unit, and that's for people to use when they're there?
But it's a mess to regulate, and we have existing town code.
Well, they shouldn't be in the front yard, period. So
Right.
if they have, one of my neighbors on Pine, or not Pine, over at Clear Lake has a rental, and he's got 8 kayaks and all kinds of stuff for people to play with when they're there, but they're not in the front yard, so,
Extended storage of these items should not be.
yeah.
And I don't know offhand, is there a jet ski, is there an ordinance that says you can't put your jet ski in your driveway? A boat, small boat?
We just have a vehicle ordinance, so you can
Yeah.
put your jet ski in the driveway and a boat in the driveway, you can't park them in the grass.
So some of these things you wanna address,
I think it
some of this is
follows the code.
cumulative in that it might not be in zoning, it may be in zoning, it may be in some other restrictions, but maybe you wanna update those, maybe you don't. Maybe you wanna be able to put your jet ski in your driveway, which is your purview to suggest and consider, but I think the generalities of making, they're gonna be subject to the zoning district they're in, right? And the uses that are permitted, and the things that are allowed where the house is located, and the rest of the code.
Yeah, I think as long as they're following our code with all of that stuff, it shouldn't be. No, I don't wanna see, like Mike said, the guy's renting the Airbnb and he has a full rental collage into the front yard of things that you can use while you're there.
And that's where that came from.
We have that already down the street, so we're trying to avoid.
That I agree with, but I don't wanna like give the owner a strike because I showed up with my bicycles and I parked them in the front
Right.
yard.
So can I try saying that the consensus of the group is that vehicle parking regulation and general clutter are legitimate issues for the town, but best dealt with outside our reform of rental regulations.
Yes.
And we do have some of those on the books now. Maybe they should be stronger, but we're not gonna fix that just for rentals. Is that the consensus of the group?
Yeah.
Okay, this one's gone. No illegal drugs or substances, no prostitution. Gone. No yard sales or vending of any
Those are
kind.
actually in the state code.
Yeah.
Going back though, those are in the short-term rental ordinance,
Are they really?
or statute, yes. So when we were getting to some of these specific things, that's right from the short-term rental code. It talks
You'll
about
see
the
it
things.
tomorrow, I just.
It's important, because I had people try to do that at my rental. More than once.
Eek. No yard sales or vending of any kind by the renters.
A yard sale is an American right.
I hope they don't sell off the owner's stuff.
I don't like it.
Airbnb and moving
I
all your
don't-
yard sale stuff there, you got some dedication.
Tara, have you had any yard sales from your renters?
No, well, I was owner occupied, so none of this applies
I
to me.
know, but I'm just saying,
No,
come home, all your stuff's gone.
no.
This is by the renters. You know.
So are we scratching that?
What's the consensus?
For scratching the yard sales?
I don't think it's necessary.
I think it's silly.
Yep, okay.
No parking of storage of commercial vehicles by the renters.
It's already in the code.
It's already in the code?
Commercial vehicles.
What are we considering a commercial vehicle?
There's a definition in there, one's weight, one's use. And then there's exemption for tow trucks and emergency on-call vehicles.
Like pickup trucks with signs on the side, they're.
So if it says, if it's a public utility on-call NIPSCO truck, that's okay. They can park in the
What if it's a pickup truck with a company logo on it?
If it's Jim Bob's carpentry, and it's not, it's a commercial vehicle, if it's got a sign on it, it should be a street.
Shouldn't be?
It's by use, so if it's commercial vehicle use, I got a van, it's a van, it's not a commercial truck, but it has logo on the side, that's a commercial vehicle, by our code. We also go 10,000 pounds and over.
And here's my one question with that, and maybe even be a town issue. I actually have a friend that does this, travels for work and stays in Airbnbs. And he's got a company logo on the side of his truck, it's a pickup truck, but he's staying in an Airbnb.
Yeah, I didn't like
They're
this one.
cheaper and more comfortable than hotels nowadays. And I mean, it's just a pickup truck, it's not even a diesel, but it has a logo on the side of it.
Yeah, we have a town code for that already, so I don't know why we need it in here. It's, the storage of it would be a problem if somebody's storing commercial vehicles there, but
Yeah.
if they, like Jay said, drive their truck and.
Yeah, I didn't like this one for two reasons.
The
One,
problem is if they drive, let's just say they drive I don't want a semi-tractor trailer
No.
thing pulling someone's Airbnb, because that's illegal per code now.
But I think you
We
want
just
to
leave it to
pickup
enforce the
trucks.
regular code.
An awful lot of people
Right.
that work for companies are permitted to drive their pickup truck back and
Right.
forth to work. You know, and on the side it says, of course, what the company name is, and they park it in the driveway. It's like a personal vehicle, so I think you want to permit that.
We'll have to look at the parking.
that's one objection I had to this one. The other objection was, a guy from Arizona comes up here and works for a month, and he wants to rent from Terra,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right? So,
Right, yeah, we'll have to.
everybody okay with we strike this? And
Yes.
again, we're relying on town code about vehicle regulation and parking in general. Last time, short-term rentals must be mindful of the residential character of the neighborhood and not trespass on other properties. I think that's a good rule.
Yeah, so you have a problem with that on a house on
It's
Dean
under the
Street?
law, right?
Pardon?
Isn't it already the law that you're not
Yeah.
supposed to
No
trespass?
trespassing, yeah,
Yeah.
nuisance, trespassing, there's all kinds in there that cover that.
We actually have a short-term rental where the people go, and they were using the neighbor's grill across the street, sitting on the patio. I can't believe people are that rude to do that, but they did.
Yeah.
They got the police called on them.
So is that gone because it's covered elsewhere then? Is that?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you where,
Redundancy.
look, so I agree with all these changes. These things are in here because neighbors saw repeated activities.
Yeah.
They want it to go away.
Yeah.
This is reaching out to make it go away. What we're saying is, it should go away, you're gonna have to call the police.
What that last, I mean, the last item doesn't need to be written in here, but just the short-term rental code would solve the problem with the house I'm talking about, because that'd be a strike.
Yeah.
This has happened 2 or 3 times where the renters gallivant about and bother everybody and trespass, and the owner, doesn't respond or doesn't care, and nothing gets done and the police get called, so. Well, it would be a strike to revoke their license if we need.
So the answer to a lot of these is, we have an improved nuisance code.
Yeah.
The town and the neighbors must collaborate on using the nuisance code. All right, you're not done, because we moved maximum occupancy to the end of this list. Do we want to say anything about maximum occupancy under short-term rentals, because we took it out of general rental? All we said with maximum, what we left in place was, when a landlord, any kind, registers as a new process, one of the things they're gonna say is maximum occupancy, they're gonna self-report. Do we wanna put anything different on short-term rentals? I know my neighbors do, I'm not sure what it is.
I think it should be self-report too, just like the other one, because not super familiar with Airbnbs, but I think a lot of them do tell you how many people you're allowed to have in there, and you need to report how many people are coming. And that even comes back to the 3-strike rule, which I'm even a little hesitant on that, because I'm renting it to a person. They may have a huge party, and I may never even know that happens if they cleaned up their mess. The nice thing about this policy is we say, hey man, the guy you just rented to for the weekend threw a huge house party at your house. He can go in on that Airbnb account and make that complaint on that guy, so people see that in the future and don't rent to him. Because they know, oh, this guy throws parties. And then Airbnb people are less likely to rent to them. I've heard stories of that all over the place. So even, like I said, I'm hesitant. A poor guy that's renting an Airbnb could have a person rent the house from him 3 weekends in a row, where that guy throws 3 big parties, and the renter may have never known it happened, and then we're gonna pull his permit because he hit the 3-strike.
But I think that is the exception versus the norm. Some of the communities they tell you, there's cameras in the front, there's cameras in the back, we know when there's more than 4 people coming. There are communities that I represent, that before they actually contracted with a software company that helped, because people weren't reporting in these Airbnbs, and they're grandfathered in, so they can restrict, they have no short-term rentals less than 30 days. But they were ahead of the game, but the police experience, there was a binder set. If the police show, here's your script, you're a cousin Jimmy, you're this or that. So people go to great lengths to do
And I
some
guess
of these
ignorance
things.
isn't an exception to the rule either, so that's.
And some of those are case by case, but I don't think that, I mean, you probably, you're gonna be the honest renter and have no clue, and, the likelihood of it happening 3 times at some point, you gotta have responsibility, right? But I don't know, so I think you have to leave the possibility open. But before you ever revoke it too, there's a hearing process, right? There's process. And again, that you haven't seen that, but in the state code, which Mike's gonna share that, I shared some of the other ones, you'll be able to see that if you plant that in this code, that will take care of, so somebody's just not losing their right overnight. Right, they're gonna be processed, they're gonna have an opportunity to be heard.
Which then I think comes to that good then self-report, because then if we see that there was a party, we can let the renter know, hey, you had 10 people here, I'm sorry, the landlord, you had 10 people here, you say you're only allowed 5, just so you know, so you can mark that to not rent from that person again, or whatever you wanna do, but you had a violation. Kind of open the communication to prevent it from in the future.
And if you hold their feet to it, right, then they're gonna hold the renters ideally.
Right, and they're, you know,
Cause if they lose their livelihood, then
You know, a hearing would go to the BZA, Board of Zoning Appeals, so. Once you get to the process where it actually goes to a hearing, you've already had 2 warnings or whatever it is, so. And then it goes to BZA, and BZA makes a decision. There's a process.
Okay. Yes,
I
Jim?
think the thing at Airbnb Corporation, I'm sure they've addressed most, if not all, of these issues for the people they want to be a part of Airbnb and renting their homes. And it would hurt their brand, but things go awry. Maybe they already have a whole set thing of guidelines. Maybe we could contact them, see if they could send us what, the agreements that they have for people who sign up to be Airbnb hosts. Maybe they already have guidelines that we could look at and compare to get more ideas on some of these topics.
You have a remarkable faith in American
Yeah.
large corporations. I do not.
I have tried contacting them about a specific property in town, and they never responded to me.
Okay.
Their financial, I
Legally
said,
created
Just about.
Airbnb that's problematic, and no response from Furbo, no response from Airbnb. Because they get their money and they don't really care, so.
so in a lot of these cases, the answer is we're relying on the neighbors in the town to use our existing code, including and especially, but not limited to, the nuisance code, to report and follow due process. Having the special use permit facilitates implementing that in the case of short-term rentals. And that's really the principal difference that we're seeing here. And so I think we need to keep that special use permit in there.
But I think you have to be mindful of, the more you do, the more in dwindling and shrinking funds and budgets of, the more you put in there, the more you have to do too, and have to be mindful of that you actually have to find a way to implement and enforce it too.
Yeah, I would, on that note, I know that the state code says no more than $150 for the permit fee. I think that was in the state code.
It's 0.
No, that's for the
You mean
registration.
Special use permit?
For registration is
But-
0.
Is the registration 0?
The special use permit, they said you can't
Yeah.
charge any more than $150. I would like to do the max because I'm just seeing dollar signs and how much it costs to enforce this.
There's also, you can put inspection fees in, so we can do an inspection fee, but you can't do registration.
Right.
And I will say that it's been 100 years that they've had no fees. And we've been kind of, and I know they make a lot of money down at the beach, so I think that I would like to see the max of $150.
We'll have that in the draft. We'll look at all these changes next month. By the way, you could bump up Mike's inspection fee too if you want to make more money.
I would like
Because it's
to-
only $100 right now. And that's,
I'm not looking to make more money, but I'm looking that we don't.
Cover
we
costs.
cover costs is what
Yeah.
I'm looking for,
Yeah,
yes.
not to lose. If you
Yeah.
okay, the last change we took was we took max occupancy out as a differential with short-term rental, which means that all the short-term rentals have to do is self-report. So what'll happen is next month, you'll get an edited changes with the things I read off, and perhaps some additions or corrections from Chris and Mike. We'll review those, and after that, then we'll start marching through accessory dwelling unit after whatever business we have next week. Yes,
Hi, can I ask 2 questions, real quick? Okay, one, when you talk about, like, especially long-term rental properties, in terms of things grandfathered in, what's the issue, are you gonna have things grandfathered in, rental properties?
Well, there's a bunch of properties I can think of right now that are single-family zoning that have multiple units on them, and yeah, you can't take those out, you just need to register them.
So it would be going forward?
Yeah.
Like if you have, okay, for instance, certain smaller apartments or certain smaller buildings and, that are grandfathered in terms of, okay, if they're not used for a year, then they have to go back to BZA or change. So that's gonna be the same way with a lot of this other stuff too?
Yeah, and then we added the word lawfully created in there somewhere.
I'm sorry, what?
Lawfully created units.
Yeah, so,
Some
yeah.
of them are not lawfully created, so.
Well, yeah, and my other question is about agents when you talk about the agent of a landlord and talking about, a certain number of miles away or a certain number of time, from what I understand, if somebody has more than 4 units or more, they have to have somebody managing the property that's a realtor, right?
I don't know about the realtor part, but they usually have to have.
Okay, that was, I was told that, if you have 4 or more units,
There are different
you have
ones.
to have a realtor managing the apartments.
If you find any reference to that, would you let Mike and me know?
And I'll just clarify that Realtor is a trademark of the National Association of Realtors, so it's not necessarily a Realtor, it's a real estate professional.
Property manager.
Property
Yeah, for our
manager,
property
certified
manager, who are
property
also
manager.
members of our association, but
So would it have to be somebody that is a realtor?
it'd have to be someone in property management more than likely, but it could, any real estate professional, I'm just trying to be the trademark police. Realtor is a trademark and it's emblazoned on my heart, so I have to tell you, so.
Well, the thing is though, in terms of an agent, say somebody has a building with 3 or 4 or even 2 units, and the landlord lives 50 miles away, can they say that one of the tenants is an agent for them, that has keys, that has, permission to call, like in an emergency, call somebody that can fix a water leak or something, and use that as an agent for, in terms of the town saying, if there's an emergency, you contact one of the tenants, would that be permissible?
I think the state law, the way they define that, I think that probably is permissible. It just, they have to designate an agent. So I don't think the agent's required to have, any specific qualifications, just as long as they're designated
So,
agent.
for instance, if a landlord says that this certain tenant, has the keys and is responsible if there's an emergency, right, that can still be okay?
It could just be Jane or John Doe. Agent won't,
Yeah.
it's not akin to real estate agent, for
Okay,
instance,
it can
just
be-
their representative.
Somebody that, the neighbor or the owner's kid that lives 2 blocks away or something, they can designate somebody for that purpose. Yeah, okay. I was just wondering, thank you.
We got a lot farther than I thought we did. I think you all made quality decisions, and I appreciate, Chris, Jim, and Mike, the support you've got to get us through here. I think we're doing the right thing for the town. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?